Hello everybody and welcome to MIA 320. I'm Dr. Mehdi Mehrabi and I'm MIA 320 course coordinator and lecturer this year. Let me start with a little bit of housekeeping information first. The main textbook that we are going to use this semester, as you can see here in this slide, is The Impact of Engineering on Society, a Multidisciplinary Approach, 3rd edition. This textbook has been compiled for MIA 320 by combining material from different resources. The majority of our lectures will be based on this textbook, and this textbook is the main source of any kind of assessment, class test, semester test, or final exam. EXA and EGA are two words that you are going to hear a lot in this course. But what are they? EXA stands for Engineering Council of South Africa, and EGA stands for EXA Graduate Attributes. I'm not going to go into detail about the EXA and its rule or like a qualification standard, but if you are interested to have detailed information about the qualification standard for Bachelor of Science in Engineering or Bachelor of Engineering, I have provided you with the links. You can click on it, you can go through the documentation and you can read it. But in this course for MIA 320, we are going just to be focused on two EXA graduate attributes, EGA number 7 and EGA number 8. Let me write it down here. This is EGA 7 and this one is EGA 8. EGA 7 or EXA graduate attribute number 7, as you can see, is focused on impact of engineering activities on society and sustainability. For this section that our lectures will be focused on, I will try to provide you with a better understanding of the role of engineering science and engineers and their impacts, whether those impacts are related to the society, industry, or environment. EGA 8 or EXA graduate attribute number 8 is about assessing and improving your ability to work individually and in a multidisciplinary project with different members from different fields of study. For this section, you are going to be assigned to a project randomly. You are going to have a project manager and you are going to have team members or group members from different departments. Okay, different department together you create a multidisciplinary research group or team, and by the help of project manager you are going to work on a multidisciplinary project. You are going to submit group report as well as individual report for this section. For the rest of this course, we call these two graduate attributes simply as EGA 7 and EGA 8. EGA 7, Impact of Engineering, and EGA 8, Group Work. Okay. In this slide, I'm going to explain a little bit about the assessment process and required sub-minima. As I told you previously, this course is focused on EGA 7 and EGA 8. So it's obvious that for passing the course you need to pass both of these graduate attributes, which means that you need to get at least 50 for each of them. So see, those are the first sub-minima. EGA 7 final mark needs to be higher than 50. EGA 8 final mark needs to be higher than 50. Otherwise, you won't be able to pass MIA 320. Okay? But let's say how MIA 320 final mark is calculated. So as you can see here, is simply from very simple equation, final mark is equal to EGA 7 final mark multiplied by 0.4 plus EGA 8 final mark multiplied by 0.6. But we are going to use this simple equation to calculate your final mark when both of these subminima are met. Okay, let me give you example like two imaginary students for a better understanding. Just think about that we have two imaginary students, a student number 1 and a student number 2. For student number 1 we have EGA 7 final mark equal to 50 and EGA 8 final mark 50 as well. But for student number 2 we have EGA 7 final mark equal to 70 and EGA 8 final mark equal to 44. So how we are going to calculate the final mark then in this case? What we do first, we check the subminima. For example, first we check the student number 1. Student number 1 we check, okay, EGA 7 final mark 50 or higher than 50, minimum 50, that's fine. For EGA 8 final mark it's again 50, so it's fine because student number 1 met both subminima. We are going to use this correlation and calculate. So MIA 320 final mark for this student will be 50 multiplied by 0.4 plus 50 multiplied by 0.6 is equal to 50. So this is the number that goes to this student study record. For student number 2 the story is a little bit different. So let's check the subminima. EGA 7 final mark is 70, higher than 50, no problem. EGA 8 final mark 44, lower than 50. So student number 2 did not satisfy the EGA 8 subminimum. So because one of the subminima is not satisfied, we are not going to use this correlation to calculate the final mark. Simply we say that it's a fail. 996 is what goes to the university admin. Okay, now that we understand the subminima for MIA 320 final mark and how the final mark is calculated, let's talk about how EGA final mark and EGA 7 and 8 final marks are calculated. Let's first start with EGA 7 final mark. Okay, let me just write it down here for easier understanding. EGA 7 final mark, EGA 7 semester mark, and EGA 7 exam mark. As you can see here, EGA 7 final mark is simply average of EGA 7 semester mark and EGA 7 exam mark. Okay, and EGA 7 semester mark consists of 2 class tests that together count for 25% of EGA 7 semester mark, and 1 semester test which counts for 75% of EGA 7 semester mark. But you might ask a question, sir, can I write the final exam regardless of my semester mark? No. As you can see, there is a subminimum for EGA 7 semester mark. So in order to be able to write EGA 7 final exam, you need to get at least 40 for EGA 7 semester mark. So let's say we have a student that gets 38 for EGA 7 semester mark. So what will happen? For this student, because the student did not satisfy the sub-minimum required for EGA 7 semester mark, this student cannot write EGA 7 final exam. And because he can or she cannot write EGA 7 final exam, this student will not be able to satisfy EGA 7 final mark sub-minimum, which is 50. So it's a fail. Repeat the course. But in this case, we have another story as well. It's based on my experience. Sometimes you have students that they get 37, 38, 39, but when you go through their records, you see that they miss one class test. So one class test they got 0, and because of that, their a semester mark is not really good. After compiling the semester mark and communicating it with the students, some of them they come and say that, sorry sir, I had a problem during that week. I was I was weak. I had a family issue. I didn't have access to ClickUp, or I didn't know anything about the class test. Can I write the final exam? No, you cannot. Why? Because we have a SIG test. We have a SIG test for semester test and class test. That's completely understandable that something can happen to you. You might don't feel good during the one day before, or during the exam or class test or semester test or whatever. But the important thing is you need to communicate it with the university as soon as possible. You cannot leave it for 2-3 months, and after that, when you see your semester mark, come and complain about it. For example, let's say you are sick. I think, if I'm not mistaken, based on the university regulations, you have 3 or 4 days to apply for a SIG test, okay, or class test in the same case as well. So you go to the university or department admin, you get the form, you fill the form, you attach the documentation to it, you give it to the department admin. The department admin will go through it, and after that they are going to send me the approved list of students for SIG test. I will ask those students to write the SIG test, and everything will be fine. Okay, so think about all those deadlines. Try to apply for it on time. Provide with all the information, and after that you will be sorted. You don't have to be worried about it, because we understand something can go wrong. You might have a problem, family issue, you might not feel good, or you are sick in that specific day. We understand that, but what we cannot tolerate is not communicating it with the university on time and providing with documentation. The other story is that some of the students were complaining last year is about the process for SIG test. Some of the students brought up this issue that why university is asking us to provide documentation regarding or claim that we were sick. Why university does not trust us and takes our word and ask for documentation. Unfortunately, I cannot do anything about it because it's a university policy. Okay, it's the university policy. They are going to ask you for documentation. So you need to follow what university is asking. You need to fill a form, provide the documentation. They go through it and they approve. Okay. And for EGA 7, exam mark is simply you write a exam, and after that, that mark will go straight into EGA 7 exam mark. But as you can see here, for final exam there is another sub minimum as well, which is 40. You can't say that yes, my semester mark is 90, I don't have to be worried about it, I can just like go to the final exam, just write 20 and I will be fine, because 90 plus 20 is 110, is 55, no problem. Why I need to be worried about it? No, as you can see, there is a sub minimum for this section. But let's try to see how does it work. We are going to have two imaginary students here. Student number 1 and student number 2. So just think about that. Student number 1, EGA 7, semester mark is 41. EGA 7, exam mark is 59. While for student number 2 we have EGA 7 semester mark equal to 72. Very good. And EGA 7 exam mark 38. So how we are going to calculate the final mark for these two imaginary students? Both of students, they have EGA 7 exam mark. What does it mean? It means that both of them already satisfied the sub-minimum required for EGA 7 semester mark. So in both cases are fine, because we know that both of them are higher than 41. In this case, let's check student number 1. We check student number 1, EGA 7, exam mark is 59, higher than 40, it's fine. So we calculate the final mark for EGA 7 section. Final mark is equal to 41 plus 59 divided by 2 is equal to 50. In this case, let's check EGA 7 exam mark is 38 and it's lower than 40. So this student cannot get 50 for EGA 7 final mark. So what would happen to this student then? First we calculate it. We calculate the number. So EGA 7 final mark is 72 plus 38 divided by 2 is 55. The mark shows here 55, but actually is not 55. Why? Because one of the sub-minima is not satisfied. So in this case, because this 55 is higher than 45, the student will write the supplementary exam because of this section. So the student did not satisfy the minimum 40 for final exam, so he can write or she can write the supplementary exam. But it doesn't mean that the supplementary again is 50 and we are putting it here as a 50 and we calculate the EGA 7 final mark. No. If student number 2 passes the supplementary, EGA 7 final mark maximum will be 50, nothing more than 50. Okay, so keep all those requirements or subminima in your mind, because they are very important and they can change really a lot of things. Okay, now we talked about how EGA 7 final mark is calculated. It's time to talk about how EGA 8 final mark is going to be calculated. As you can see here, let me just first write it down here. It's final mark, semester mark, exam mark. The same as EGA 7 final mark. EGA 8 final mark is simply the average of EGA 8 semester mark and EGA 8 exam mark. EGA 8 semester mark calculated based on your group report and individual report. The group report counts for 60% of EGA 8 semester mark, and individual report counts for 40% of EGA 8 semester mark. And again, it's not just about that, because you can see here two subminima. In order to pass the EGA 8 final mark, you need to get at least 50 for group report and 50 for individual report. Okay, so keep it in mind as well. And EGA 8 exam mark consists of two sections. One section which is an oral examination, and the other one is per assessment mark. Oral examination, okay, how we are going to do it during this situation that we are facing at the moment. We need to think about it, and we will come with some kind of idea about it. Most probably it's not going to be something that you or external examiner and internal examiner sit in one office and talk. Most probably everything will be online, but don't worry about it at the moment. We are going to communicate about it later. Okay, so oral examination will count for 70% of your EGA 8 exam mark, and 30% of your EGA 8 exam mark comes from per assessment. But here again, for oral examination, I can see another subminima, which is 50 again. But let's give another example, like another imaginary student. Let's say we have an imaginary student, student number 1, and we want to calculate this student EGA semester mark. Individual report, is 75, very good mark, but group report is not very good, so it's 40. How we are going to deal with this one? So first, let's check here. For individual report is 75, higher than 50, so everything is fine. But for group report is lower than 50, so it's not good. So a student failed. But the question is, in these cases, sometimes a student come and complain about their group members. They are saying that, no, I tried my best. You can see here that my individual report was really good. I got a very good result for my individual report. By my team members, they were not very good students. They didn't help me. So that was the reason why our group report was not very good. The quality of the group report was low, and we couldn't make it. In this case, if you come and complain about your group members, if you come and complain about your group member just after submission of your group report or individual report, we are not going to accept it. Why? Because you had 3 months to come and speak with your project manager to sort this problem out. Okay, so you didn't come, you didn't talk with your project manager, and now after submitting everything you complain about your team member, that won't be acceptable. But that, yeah, of course, that can happen. You might write to one of your team members 3 times, 4 times, no response. You are going to organize a weekly meeting between the group members to discuss, talk. That student never show up, never contributes. What you need to do in those situations, you need to write to your group manager immediately. You need to let the group manager know about the situation. And after that, when you come and complain that you did it alone, the team members, they didn't help you, we have a record. We go through it and we say that yes, he's right, she's right, we went through that group issue, we sorted out or we couldn't sort it out, those kind of issues. Okay, so everything needs to be communicated with your group manager. Okay, I think that's enough regarding the assessment and how we are going to calculate your MIA 320 final mark. If you have any confusion about it, please go through a study guide and read through the study guide, the section regarding the assessment. I explain everything, but I think it's very clear but all the examples that I provided. So for this MIA 320, there are really critical subminima that you need to keep in mind, and always think about MIA 320 as 2 EGAs, EGA 7, EGA 8, and you need to pass both of them in order to be able to pass MIA 320 at the end of this semester. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about what material we are going to cover for EGA 7 or impact of engineering. Because as I mentioned, all the lectures will be focused on EGA 7, and for EGA 8 you are going to do a multidisciplinary project. EGA 7 will be divided into 3 parts or sections, as you can see here. Part 1 is engineering, society and industry. Part 2 is engineering and environment. And part 3 is managing the impact of engineering. For engineering, society and industry, as you can see here, we are going to speak about 3 different subjects. We will talk about engineering history, innovation and technology transfer, and sociological insight and philosophy of engineering. For engineering history topic, we start with talking about the old civilizations and their technological achievements, the important role of engineering in those civilizations. We also will talk about the spread of civilization and technology around the world. We will talk about the craft-based technology in Europe, the scientific revolution, the rise of capitalism, as well as industrial revolution, its origin and how it changed the world. We also will talk about industrialization and spread of it. And at the end of this topic, we are going to talk about engineering education and the rise of engineering profession and engineering in modern era. Then we start topic 2. We will talk about invention process. We will talk about the differences between invention and innovation. We will talk about different models of innovation. We will also talk about research and development and its importance. We then talk about social context for innovation and consumer rights and protection. We will also talk about development and its definition, foreign aid, debt crisis, and technology transfer. Finally, we end section 1 with talking about sociological insights and philosophy of engineering. In this topic, we talk about GDP as an indication of prosperity. We will talk about the nominal GDP, distribution of wealth. We will talk about Gini coefficient, Lorentz curve. We will talk about the influence of engineers to improve the economical condition of the society that they live in. And we end this topic with talking about the race and gender wage gap in South Africa. For section 2 of EGA 7, that is focused on engineering and the environment, we are going to cover 5 topics of climate change, water pollution, air pollution, water quality control, and solid waste management. We are going to spend quite some time on this section. For climate change topic, we are going to talk about the risks and impact of global warming, temperature and carbon dioxide variation over time, greenhouse effect, global energy balance, consequences of climate change on food security and human settlements. Then we move to air pollution topic and we talk about sources of air pollution, whether they are stationary or mobile. We will talk about different pollutants and their impacts and sources. We will talk about motor vehicle emission, 2 and 4 stroke internal combustion engines. We will talk about diesel engine. We will talk about emission control, alternative fuels, and we end the section on air pollution with Gaussian plumb model. For water pollution topic, we are going to talk about water resources, water pollutants. We will talk about biochemical oxygen demand and its effect on rivers. We will talk about point source plage flow model. We will talk about oxygen sag curve. We will also talk about eutrophication and stratification. We will talk about dissolved oxygen, and we end the water pollution topic with talking about contamination of groundwater. Then we start the water quality control topic. We will talk about municipal water and wastewater system. We talk about the differences between surface water and groundwater, sequence of events for each of them. We will talk about physical, chemical, and biological treatments. Last topic of second section is about solid waste management. For this topic, we will talk about municipal solid waste, green product strategy, source reduction, recycling, and composting. We will talk about waste to energy combustion, and we will end this topic with landfills. Section 3 of EGA 7 is focused on managing the impact of engineering and covers 4 topics of risks, ethics, Occupational Health and Safety Act, and sustainability. We start with risk. We will talk about risk management, probability and consequences, and risk mitigation. Then we move to the ethics. We define ethics in the workplace. We talk about the relationship between ethics, morality, and law. We answer why engineers need ethics by focusing on Boeing Max, ethical failure. Then we will talk about codes of ethics, and we end this topic by talking about the differences between a profession and occupation. Then we move to Occupational Health and Safety Act, and we talk about different sections of Act 85 of 1993. And finally, we end EGA 7 with the topic of sustainability. First, we define sustainability, We talk about United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, and we end this topic by talking about sustainability in South African context. That's all about EGA and the topics and subtopics that we are going to cover for EGA 7. For EGA 8, as I mentioned previously, it's all about the project. You are going to be assigned randomly to a project. We will have group members from different departments, from Department of Mechanical Engineering, Chemical Engineering, Electrical Engineering, Computer Science, Industrial Engineering. So together you create a multidisciplinary group. Different people from different backgrounds, from different departments. After that, you are going to work with a project manager. Project manager is a person who is responsible to oversee your project and your progress. He is experienced in that topic. He is going to provide you with some information regarding the project. Of course, it's not like giving you all the information and you do it. No, when you have a problem, you go to your project manager, you ask, he or she will try to answer your question. Okay. After that, at the end of the semester, you are going to submit one individual report. Each student in that group needs to submit one individual report, and as a group you submit one group report as well. You get 1 mark for your individual report, you get 1 mark for your group report. As I mentioned in the section that I was talking about the assessment of EGA 8, individual report and group report will make your EGA 8 semester mark. Individual report counts 40%, group report counts 60%. After that, you are going to have some kind of oral examination, but in most probably it will be, everything will be online this year. So you are going to present your work, or we are going to ask you as a team to produce like a 5 to 10 minutes like a video to present your work, and after that we send it to external examiner. They are going to assess you based on that one. If you are in danger of like failing, we are going to call you and ask you more questions to be sure that you have enough time to present yourself. And based on that one and per assessment, we are going to calculate your EGA 8 exam mark together with the semester mark. The average of those two numbers will make your EGA 7 final mark. If EGA 8 final mark is higher than 50 and EGA 7 final mark is 50, and at the same time you satisfied all the other sub minima, you are going to pass MIA 320. Basically, that's it for the first lecture. And good luck. See you next week.